Have you heard the one where I did kung fu? Okay, I know it sounds a little ridiculous. And this is not really a story I wanted to tell, but seeing that I don't want to tell it means that I probably need to tell it. And Max, my son, is watching like Cobra Kai. Not that he should be watching Cobra Kai, but it's bringing up like all these memories. So I'm going to just talk about it and we'll see how it goes. As a teenager, I loved everything Asian. I, wanted to learn Japanese. I watched a lot of anime. I went to like cosplay conventions. Okay, I was a little bit of a dork and a little bit of a nerd, but I loved Asian stuff. And my dad would make fun of me. Al would be like, "You are not Asian," and it just interested me all the time of everything, Japanese, Chinese, didn't matter. So, I mean, it made perfect sense to take up Kung Fu. And I was in ballet still. So, like in ballet, your legs go out 180 degrees this direction. Well, the Kung Fu that I chose actually turned my legs in this way. So, it probably was pretty good for my body, a little bit of a balance in the muscle structure. But also, it was derived from like women for women. And so you're using your opponent's weight and their momentum against them. So as a woman, it was very great for protection, and you felt like you were like taking back authority or whatever. But I decided to enroll in I guess Kung Fu school. No, I don't know. It's like seafood. You get a seafood. You get a, I don't know. It's dojo. I can't remember if it's called a dojo or not. But I was about 18 years old, and I found this place in Texas. And I remember when I walked into this dojo, I immediately locked eyes with the owner. And in doing so, there was this flood of like emotion. And back in the day, I really believed strongly in reincarnation. And so in my 18-year-old mind, it was like, whoa, we have this connection. We have this, you know, otherworldly connection where we've probably spent many lives together. Now I know better in the fact that that probably was not the case. This gentleman was 40 years old. I was 18. He was fascinating to me. He knew like 7 languages. He supposedly was like a spy or whatever. These were the stories that came out as I began my process of learning Kung Fu. And he was gifted. He was very gifted in martial arts. He was very gifted in probably manipulating or having some tools in the emotional and spiritual realm that could possibly deceive humans. I would say on the evil side, but it didn't feel that way. It didn't feel that way. When I walked in there, it felt like, oh my goodness, this is where I was supposed to be the whole time. And look how I'm getting this attention. Look how special I am. Look how, because I was a gymnast and a dancer, look how naturally it comes to my body. I was one of like 3 girls that was in this school. So he did spend extra attention on me. And I started to learn Chinese, language, and Mandarin, and learned a lot of Kung Fu. And how the Kung Fu works is, yes, you have a Sifu, but then you also have, which is your leader, and then you also have all the other students that are learning. And so when you're learning, you're also learning from other students. So then I started to get to meet other students and started to build relationships. As I did this, my relationship with the owner, the Sifu, began to get very unhealthy and enmeshed. And he was married, and I don't I don't hold any guilt anymore, but I had to get rid of it a lot. There was a lot of things that were inappropriate, and I haven't told anybody this, so it's weird and difficult, and I don't like it. Okay, so it was inappropriate. It was stuff that I shouldn't have been doing, but I was 18 years old and he was 40. So looking back, when I was 40, if I did anything like that with an 18-year-old, it doesn't even cross my mind. And the deception and the manipulation, like I had no emotional maturity to combat that. So I didn't know what to do. I felt seen. I felt supported. I felt, I wouldn't say loved, but I would say special. And there were other students, male students, that wanted to date me because, of course, I'm the only girl and we're all a bunch of dorks. And there was this one kid, well, he was a kid, but he was in his 20s, but like 18, 20s. And I remember he tried so hard. He gave me like these amazing Valentine's Day gift because I said I hated Valentine's Day. And he's probably who I was supposed to, spend my time with. And I didn't want that. I didn't want the one that was rational. So I feel like I should have maybe ventured down that route. He wasn't the right guy for me, but at least he was more appropriate than a 40-year-old. And like I said, there was two other girls, and one I became close friends with. I'm going to call her Sarah. And Sarah moved to New York, and we stayed friends. And she was like super cool, like, a photographer and just hip and living in the village. And when I moved to New York, we got together and we got to talking, and we were like, reminiscing. And, we would go out to dinners and lunches and we would hang. And I remember there was a time she's like, there's something I need to tell you. And I'm like, okay. She's like, I need to talk to you. Let's go out. And I'm like, I know what it is. She's a lesbian. And so like, that was like what I thought she was going to come out of the closet. And so like, we're going out to dinner and I'm like, okay, she's going to tell me, that she's a lesbian and we're going to, have a laugh and have a drink. So, she's like getting nervous, kind of like I'm nervous talking about this now. And she's like, there's something I need to say, and it's really hard for me to talk about. And I'm like, I know what it is. You're a lesbian. And she's like, no, actually I'm not. I'm like, oh, really? Could have fooled me. But that's beside the point. She said that she, back in the Kung Fu school, had an affair with the teacher. And I wasn't shocked. I don't know why I wasn't shocked. I wasn't hurt. I knew, my discernment kicked in a long time before I spoke to her. And even in the situation that I was in, I knew it wasn't right. It didn't feel good. It felt icky. So I told her, oh, funny you should say that, because we have a lot in common. And so we divulged all the things, and we started to see the sickness and the brokenness within him. And like, oh my gosh, I gave him, like, for example, I gave him a song. It was very campy and cheesy, but like that song from Sarah McLachlan, like, I will remember you. Like in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, we have so many lives together, and this song reminds me about like remembering our time together. Like, I was probably your mother and you were my child. And because there was this immaturity to him, there was a stunted growth. And that's probably why he was falling for 18-year-olds. And so like I gave him that song, and she's like, oh yeah, he gave me this song. I'm like, that son of a bitch, I gave that to him. So it was like this feeling of my uniqueness, my specialness, my anything that was, I thought, pure for our relationship, wasn't there. She had the same relationship. She had the same thing play out. And so what this talk is about today is really, I want to urge young women and young men to listen to their intuition deeper than they listen to an elder telling them they're special. Because the feelings may be true. The feelings that you have for that person may be pure, and the feelings that they have for you, they may really feel them. But you got to consider the source in which they come from. If they are feeling that from like a 40-year-old to an 18-year-old, I'll give that example. If they are feeling that, it's coming from a brokenness, it's coming from dark foundations that is not going to be the fulfillment that you think that you need. And I'm not going to say that it was abuse. I'm not going to say that it was sexual misconduct. Well, misconduct also. I'll give them that. It was probably sexual misconduct. But when you're 18 years old, you pass that off as like, well, I was consensual. I was an adult. But it doesn't make it right. So I've healed from the guilt. I know Sarah has healed from the guilt. I've healed from the misconduct. But what I think comes into play is as I'm a mother, as I've been an instructor of dance, and I've seen this happen. My heart breaks. Because when you are young, you're not fully formed into self as much as you want to be and as much as it feels like you are. There's so much space that can be filled with darkness. So stand strong and really understand that you deserve bigger and you deserve better than what a twisted 40-year-old can give you. All right, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it still doesn't feel great. But hopefully this will help one person. Thanks.